currently Earth. It was May 6th in the year 1937 that the Airship Hindenburg, the largest dirigible ever built and the pride of Nazi Germany, burst into flames upon touching its mooring mast in Lincolnhurst, New Jersey, continuing the eternity of 36 passengers and crew members. Frenchman Henry Giffard constructed the first successful airship in 1852. His hydrogen-filled blimp carried a 3-horsepower steam engine that turned a large propeller and flew at a speed of 6 miles per hour. The rigid airship, often known as the Zeppelin, after the last name of its innovator, Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin, was developed by the Germans in the late 19th century. Unlike French airships, the German airships had a light framework of metal girders that protected a gas-filled interior. However, like Giffard's airship, they were lifted by highly flammable hydrogen gas and vulnerable to explosion. Large enough to carry substantial numbers of passengers, one of the most famous rigid airships was the Graf Zeppelin, a dirigible that traveled around the world in 1929. In the 1930s, the Graf Zeppelin pioneered the first transatlantic air service, leading to the construction of the Hindenburg, a larger passenger airship. On May 30th in 1937, the Hindenburg left Frankfurt, Germany, for a journey across the Atlantic to Lincolnhurst Navy Air Base. Stretching 804 feet from stern to bow, it carried 36 passengers and crew of 61. While attempting to moor at Lincolnhurst, the airship suddenly burst into flames and probably after a spark ignited its hydrogen core. Rapidly falling 200 feet to the ground, the hull of the airship incinerated within seconds. 13 passengers, 21 crewmen, and 1 civilian member of the ground continued their eternity, and most of the survivors suffered substantial injuries. Radio announcer Herb Morrison, who came to Lincolnhurst to record a routine voiceover for an NBC newsreel, immortalized the Hindenburg disaster in a famous on-the-scene description in which he emotionally declared, quote, "Oh, the humanity," unquote. The recording of Morrison's commentary was immediately flown to New York, where it was aired as a part of America's first coast-to-coast radio news broadcast. Lighter-than-air passenger travel rapidly fell out of favor after the Hindenburg disaster, and no rigid airship survived World War II. It was May 6 in 2004 at 9:00 p.m. Eastern and Pacific times that the familiar theme song, "I'll Be There For You," announces the beginning of the end, as an estimated 51.1 million people tune in for the final original episode of NBC's long-running comedy series, Friends. Created and executive produced with Kevin S. Bright and Marta Kaufman and David Crane, Friends debuted 10 years and 236 episodes earlier on September 22nd in 1994. Shot at the Warner Brothers studio in Burbank, California, the show was set in New York City's Greenwich Village, where 6 friends struggled with the ups and downs of young adult life in the big city, albeit while living in an impossibly large, cushy apartment, apparently without the burden of having to spend much time working actual jobs. Almost from the beginning of its decade-long run, Friends was a cultural phenomenon, with 6 Emmy Awards, including one for Outstanding Comedy Series, sparking hairstyle trends, the Rachel, spawning catchphrases, "How you doing?" of course, Joey, and turning its 6 principal cast members into household names. Preceded by a maelstrom of hype and publicity, the hour-long Friends finale drew approximately 2/3 of the audience garnered by the finales of 2 other long-running sitcoms, Cheers, which was 80.4 million in 1993, and Seinfeld, which was 76.2 million in 1998. According to a Fox News report, that is. The most watched TV series finale ever, MASH, was viewed by some 105 million people when it aired in 1983. According to the New York Times, NBC charged advertisers an average of $2 million for every 30 seconds of ad time during the finale, a record amount for a sitcom and only $300,000 less than what CBS charged during that year's Super Bowl. In the finale, the long-running, off-and-on relationship between Ross, which is David Schwimmer, of course, and Rachel, who is Jennifer Aniston, which over the years included a drunken Las Vegas wedding and baby, Emma, born in 2002, ended as most of the show's fans hoped. They got back together, presumably for good. Meanwhile, Chandler, Matthew Perry, and Monica, Courtney Cox Arquette, had become suburbanites and parents of twins. Phoebe, Lisa Kudrow, was married, and Joey, Matt LeBlanc, was headed off to LA to pursue his acting career. A spin-off sitcom, Joey, followed LeBlanc's character to Hollywood. The show failed to attract a significant audience and was canceled in 2006. Throughout the show's run, its 6 stars maintain a famously united front, ensuring that no one of them emerged as a dominating force on screen, even negotiating their salaries together. In the spring of 2000, each member of the cast signed a 2-year, $40 million contract that netted them each a staggering $1 million per episode. Broadcast in some 100 countries, Friends continues to earn good ratings for its syndicated rerun episodes. I still watch it on HBO Max. In February 2020, it was announced the original cast would gather for an unscripted reunion special to air on HBO Max. Oh yeah, I saw that. The special aired in May of 2021. It was May 6th in the year 2013 that 3 women are rescued from a Cleveland, Ohio house where they had been imprisoned for many years by their abductor, 52-year-old Ariel Castro, an unemployed bus driver. The women, Michelle Knight, Amada Berry, and Gina De Jesus, went missing separately between 2002 and 2004 when they were 21, 16, and 14 years old, respectively. Also rescued from the house was a 6-year-old girl born to Berry while she was being held captive and fathered by Castro. Castro abducted each of the women who had been acquaintances of his children by giving them a ride in his car, then luring them into his home in a working-class Cleveland neighborhood. There, they were tortured and kept locked up. During their years in captivity, the women were beaten, sexually assaulted, and restrained by chains and starved. Knight told authorities she became pregnant by Castro 5 times, and each time he punched and kicked her and forced her to miscarriage. Additionally, Castro ordered Knight to help deliver Berry's baby, threatening to kill Knight if anything went wrong. In all the years they were held hostage, the women were allowed into a backyard of Castro's dilapidated 2-story house just a few times, and only when disguised in wigs and sunglasses. Meanwhile, Castro led a double life, driving a school bus, chatting with neighbors, playing bass in local bands, and posting to his Facebook page. That came to an end on the evening of May 16, 2013, when Berry stood at the front door of Castro's house after he'd gone out and screamed for help. In response, neighbors kicked in the door and Berry escaped with her daughter, then called 911. When police arrived at the house, they rescued Knight and De Jesus. Castro was arrested in the area that same night. On July 26, 2013, in a deal that allowed Castro to avoid a possible death sentence, he pleaded guilty to more than 900 charges against him, including kidnapping, rape, aggravated murder, for causing Knight to miscarry. On August 1st, a judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 1,000 years. A month later, Castro continued his eternity, reportedly by hanging himself in his prison cell by a sheet. The historic information divulged on this audio file can be verified on history.com.